G'day everyone. Welcome back to the Toon podcast, this Southern Hemisphere's biggest and best podcast for all things Newcastle United. Here to talk about the week that was. I'm with Jack tonight. Jack, how are you, mate?
Too bad, all things considered. Another Monday morning shit show, but yeah, we'll get into it. And also, my daughter's just put a bead up her nose, so that was fun. So yeah, it's going well in the Stanley household this weekend.
Things are going great. Yeah, right. Well, let's not get caught up in your medical history. We'll start. We'll start with the overnight, as you described, shit show. 3-1, another away loss after taking the lead. Why are we like this, Jack?
That's the $64 million question, isn't it? The last two games have been absolutely terrible. The last two league games. I think social media can sometimes overreact a little bit, or it's not just social media. Football fans in general can swing wildly from joy to misery within the space of a few minutes. But I think this time, like the last two games, I think all of the criticism thrown towards the team, all the criticism thrown towards the manager and the coaching staff, I think it's pretty justified because these are two of the worst performances that we've probably ever had in the last four years. So it's quite confronting for it to happen so closely together. So why we'll like it, it's very difficult to know. I think there's lots of different reasons and things that play into it. It's certainly more than just one thing, which is what it kind of gets distilled down to one factor when you're talking about it, when you've got 140 characters to analyze it. But I think there's a risk that if you start giving reasons, people will just say it's excuses, or you'll get accused of being a happy clapper or who just wants to defend Eddie Howe. So we can probably talk about why it's happening. There's probably, like I said, there's various reasons. I think it probably starts in the summer, and that's not an excuse. It's just how things went, and the squad composition now is problematic. None of the players are playing well, and nobody seems to know what they're doing at the moment, frankly, which is a bit scary 4 years into a managerial reign, but also because of how good we've been previously. So lots of different factors playing into it, I think.
Yeah, and like you said, let's not be hyperbolic. There's enough evidence now to suggest there's a definite problem in the Premier League away from home. Haven't won since April this year, so yeah, there's enough games there to suggest that something's wrong, and we're nowhere near the same team away from home as what we are when we're at home. So we might just go through a couple of plausible explanations for it, I guess. Now, like you said, that there's not just one, but I think with some of the stuff that we'll touch on now, there's definitely legitimate reasons for our form and our record and our performances as well. I think sometimes you can play well and not win, but the fact is we're not even playing well and we're getting comprehensively beaten by average teams, if not below average teams. So I might start where you started, mate, in the summer. So thinking about this today, it feels like there's a real kind of mixed signals on the recruiting front with the way we recruited and stuff like that. Now, we're going to put Wissa to one side because I don't think that's not a factor at the moment, given he was injured away from the club, hasn't really played yet. So I don't think you can count him in this mess at the moment because things beyond his control have contributed to him not contributing. So we'll park him for a sec. Although, yeah, I said in our chat during the week, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but 60 million on a bloke that's going to play 6 months before you got him for nothing is crazy. But no one could have foreseen him getting a knee injury while away on international duty just after he signed. So we'll start with Alanga. He was, I think, a 55. These are all just approximate figures. So £55 million signing from Nottingham Forest last year, who had a great season at Nottingham Forest in a very counter-attacking team, which really suited the way he played with his speed and his ability to break, as well as the other Forest players who were really quick. And it was a really effective tactic for them, which led them to Europe and within a game of playing in the Champions League this year. So we spoke about, and Eddie's spoken about the constant evolution of the team, and he was brought because I assume that that's the way we play. Like we were, as much as we probably don't want to admit it at times, we were a heavily based counter-attacking team with our press, and our ability to transition with speed really, really quickly was our biggest weapon, with Gordon, Murphy, number 14 as well. Like we had quick players there who were really effective on the counter-attack. Now, if we want to start transitioning and what we heard to a more possession-based team and controlling games more, then why did we buy Alanga for that much when we were going to start changing the way we played? So that's the first one that, what's the purpose of him and how does he fit into how we want to play? Because they seem to be a bit conflicting for me at the moment.
Yeah. I saw a graphic earlier this week, just a few days ago, about teams that have played against low blocks the most. So like teams who have defended in a deep defensive position, and Newcastle was second in the Premier League. So teams know that we struggle against this. So it does seem strange on the face of it that you sign somebody who's transitional player when we're not playing that, we're not allowed to play that style as much, even though he's good at counter pressing and all those things that make us so good. But you're right, we are at our best when we're pressing high and when we're on the break, and that's when we can be really devastating against teams. So, but teams are not just going to let us do this. Like we tried to change this a little bit last season at times as well, and become more of a sort of a possession-based team that's got a bit more control. But Alanga, I think we need to just give him time to settle, which is he's £55 million, so he's not necessarily going to get that, but he can't even get a start at the moment because his form has not been good. And he's had a couple of chances. And he had another one today when Lewis Hall shot. He was close to getting his toe onto that. But yeah, it maybe doesn't point towards the most effective recruitment. I think he'll come good, but it was a signing that Eddie pushed for, and nobody was complaining at the time about it. He got 6 goals and 10 assists last season as well, so I'm sure he'll come good. But this is not the right environment really at the moment to be introducing new players like this, especially when the focal point player who he was signed to play with, really, who we already knew, was gone within a few weeks, and we're trying to reshape the whole attack around this extremely talented but very unorthodox new striker who himself isn't even really meant to be the first choice striker, because we signed a striker who was never injured, who got injured straight away. So I think you can look at that, and you can, like, we didn't have a director of football, so there was that whole situation as well. So like I said, these are reasons, I think, why things have been a bit troublesome at the moment, and we need to try and get away from this to develop from that team, that transition based team that we were, to have a bit more control, because we've got such good players in theory. But maybe we just have to accept that this season is going to be a transitional season now because of factors beyond our control to an extent. But obviously we need to be picking up points, and it's absolutely way off the minimum levels required in the last 2 games.
Yeah, and like we were in a similar position last year, and we went on that really good run, and we had a bloke who was scoring goals for fun during that period. We don't have that anymore. We don't have a reliable goal scorer. So to think that you can think it, but it's not going to happen like it did last year, where we're just going to get bailed out of the shit and challenge for top 4 and things like that. We're miles off that at the moment. So let's talk about Big Nick. So he was a very late signing, and like you said, wasn't signed to play like he is, but he's having a significant impact on how we play. Now,
Mm.
you can, and this is why everything kind of isn't making sense to me. So he's a real link up player, and don't get me wrong, some of his touches are incredible, and he's going to be an absolute talent. There's no doubt about that. But how does he fit into how we play? Because like I said, there's always, nothing makes sense to me at the moment with our recruiting and how we want to play. Because if he's like, okay, let's press. Well, we can't press because A, he's not quick enough, and two, we don't have anyone to replace him. So if he gasses out after an hour, what are we going to do then? Because we don't actually have anyone to replace him now. Even at the back end of last year, or not even, probably nearly from halfway during the year, it looked like our main striker would sort of crash after 60, 65 minutes. However, we were lucky enough that we had Callum Wilson to come on and see out that last half an hour. Definitely wasn't as effective, but still had that option that, hey, mate, go as hard as you can for as long as you can. And then when you can't go, we'll hook you off and get you in and get a fresh body in. But we can't do that now. So our press game's out the window because it leads from the front. It's got to start from the main striker. Now, if you're protecting your main striker to try and get him through a whole game, then the press is out the window, and we don't have another way to play. Or do we sit back and we can't counterattack because Nick's too slow to get on the front foot and try and get ahead of the last defender, and that he's more in front of the last defender to try and get someone else in behind. So it seems really clunky at the moment with who we've got and how we want to play.
Yeah, and he's not supposed to be playing this much football as well. Of course, he's playing way more than he should be, and than he was expected to at this stage. Let's not forget he'd only had half a season really of senior football properly as a starting striker in the Bundesliga.
Yeah. Not blaming him at all. It's just there's no other choice at the moment, but it's counterintuitive to how we want to play.
Yeah, it completely changes the style that has brought us success over the last 3 years because he's a different profile. It was a market opportunity, so we needed a striker. We didn't think he was going to be attainable, but it's not like we've been planning the whole summer around him, because he's such a unique player as well. So that's why I think Wissa was really going to be the main starter, and then Big Nick was going to come on and have time to settle, and then over time the team would have developed a play style that maybe included both of them, but we just haven't been able to do that. But he comes so deep because that's his game. He wants the ball and he links up so well. Like the last few games he hasn't been as good at holding the ball up and passing it off, but he still got an assist today. He got quite a good assist.
That was an incredible flick.
Yeah, so he'll do things like that once or twice a game, and he's had a really he's been really efficient in scoring his chances. He just hasn't had many chances. There was a couple of times today where he did some good work. He got the ball deep, he laid it off, and then it was both in the second half. One was when Barnes cut the ball back into space in the box and he wasn't there, and the second one was when Murphy put a really good cross in. And again, because Nick had been so deep, winning the ball and playing the ball off, he wasn't there. He couldn't get there. So I was thinking about like Harry Kane, what he does, he comes deep, he does it, but then he also gets himself into the box to finish the chances off. So maybe that's what he needs to work on. But he's feeding off scraps really, and he needs runners off him as well. So if you're going to play that deep, like I think there was a game, might be in the Bilbao game, where Dan Burn had a higher, he was further up the pitch in his heat map.
I've seen that graphic. Yeah,
Big Nick. That's like, you don't want that to be happening really.
No.
But it's again comes back to the recruitment and what we did, and we made the best of a bad situation, but we did try and get other strikers that would have fit better, being a more like-for-like replacement for number 14, which we didn't manage to do. So that's why I think this was always going to be a bit of a transition. And he had a good start and he scored some good goals, but it's difficult with Wissa being out as well. Like the attack's just not functioning properly. And Eddie referenced this today when he said, the problem is like we're just not scoring. Like we used to score a goal and then we used to score another goal almost straight away afterwards.
Mm.
2 seasons ago, we scored 85 league goals, and even last season, there was periods where we just blew teams away with our pace, and we've got the confidence and the momentum. But even when we're scoring goals in the last 2 games, it's kind of been against the run of play, or it's kind of come from nowhere, even though they're both good goals. But we just haven't had the confidence to capitalize on that. And that might be just because we're just not fluent going forward. None of the midfielders can pass to each other, which is, I think, a bigger problem than seems to be getting sort of discussed. The fact that the players we can't even keep the ball from the back. Like, you just know when we get the ball, there's going to be a difficult pass into midfield somewhere, and it's either going to be a flick that just goes out of play for a throw in, which against Brentford is a problem, or we're just going to lose the ball, and we can't retain the ball as well. So I'm getting on to another reason for it as well, but that's what's been happening as well. And Nick has been good at retaining the ball, and there was a game a few months ago, about a month ago, where he retained the ball every single time he got it. 18 times he kept the ball. But when he's not doing that, it's difficult because we just can't, nothing sticks. And like you said before, this is happening against average Premier League teams, which we should really have the confidence to be able to do better against than this.
And do you know what sort of sums up that probably more than anything is the kickoff after halftime, where the long to the corner flag and try and pin him in ended up going out for a goal kick, and we give the ball straight back to him again. So
that just summed Tonali's game up, didn't it?
You couldn't have scripted it any better for our ability to retain the ball and put opposition under the pressure and stuff like that. The last of the summer ones we'll talk about is Jacob Ramsey. Now, he seemed like a Joe Willock upgrade, if anything, at the time, a bit more like a fitter version of Joe Willock, a bit more dynamic, better with the ball and things like that. He's the same. I don't know what he is and how he fits into this midfield. You don't want three of the same player. You kind of want a little bit of variety in what you've got. And I think when we're at our best, we did that. We had sort of Tonali, the workhorse, Bruno, workhorse as well, but his ability to keep the ball when he was put under pressure. I think one of the stupidest terms I've ever heard was used to describe him was press resistant. Like, no, he can just keep the ball. It's okay. And then you sort of had the physicality of Joel Linton. Now, he's fallen off a cliff. There's no doubt about that. Whether it's injuries are caught up to him or his combative nature and Eddie's sort of gone away from that. I think Dan Burn might have referenced it last week as well. They've kind of transitioned away from the shithouse mags that they were and they had a reputation for. And maybe they're being too nice. It doesn't seem like there's an aggressive part like within the boundaries of the game and things like that, but they just don't seem as aggressive with or without the ball, especially this season too. Like, so I'm just not sure. I don't know what Jacob Ramsey is.
It's easier to play that way when you're underdog. You can go to the Emirates and upset them. But we're now in a position where we are being such a successful team that teams do that to us, and we need to find ways of coping with that, or we need to just beat them with our superior quality. We've got probably the 5th or 6th on paper best team in the league, but it's just not working at the moment. Ramsey got injured straight away, which didn't help. He looked quite good against Leeds, then got injured. But the thing is, these players cost him like 40, 55, 70 million, so you're sort of expecting them to be able to come in and hit the ground running, which again is a big expectation. But players that Eddie has liked for a long time and that he's chased, but there's where do you fit them? Where's the space in the team for them, really? Like the system. But it did seem like Ramsey was going to be that left-sided attacking player in games where we don't need Joe Linton. But Joe Linton's such a favourite of Eddie for all of the physical attributes he brings. And the Premier League is more direct this season as well. So in theory, players like Joe Linton and Dan Burn, it's kind of better for them this year because it plays to their strengths and maybe not to Ramsey's strengths. But it's a bit like Elanga. Like, this is not really a good environment for new players to be coming in, and they just need a bit of confidence probably. They need a run of games. Lewis Miley came in and played really well against Bournemouth. He was good, and then he started. Was it Spurs? He started another game. He started the Champions League game, didn't he? I think he was good.
So yeah, he started the Champions League game,
and then he's been dropped out again as well. So I think the biggest problem at the moment is that our best players, Tonali and Bruno, like when they're not playing well, the team doesn't play well because they're our best players, and there's no doubt that they've both dropped off, especially in these last 2 away games. But I think it gives the rest of the players, it makes them feel bad when they see the 2 talisman midfielders not doing it as well. And maybe it's because there's been this virus going through, and maybe they're tired, but you just don't want to hear that really. Like in a season when we've spent so much money on getting the squad sort of better. And the concerning thing is we've gone from good, decent away performances against Villa and Bournemouth. Bournemouth was okay. Villa was a good performance. Leeds was a strange one where we went really defensive, but we weren't doing too bad. We weren't conceding goals away. We've gone from that to basically just collapsing against worse teams. So that's what's concerning, I think, and that's what makes you think, where are we going to improve? We will improve. I think, like you said, we won't improve to the extent we did last season. Last season we had Tonali to bring back in, and that fixed things. And we went on that good run. Like we're a much better team than what we're showing at the moment. And Eddie will find solutions like he always does. But at the moment, it's hard to see where that's going to come from away from home. And we just have to hope that we keep picking a point at home, because we're certainly not going to be on the road.
No. So we'll talk to Eddie and a bit about what you said about Joelinton then. Has he got too much trust in the players to keep going? Now, it is a bit hard. Like after last week's, let's call it what it was. It was a shit show at the London Stadium. He pretty much picked the same team midweek, as in, all right, go and fix this up. All right, you were no good. I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourselves. Now, albeit that was a home game and our home form's been really good, should he have changed some things on the weekend? Now, Gordon was a forced change with that. I think it was a hip injury. Don't think it's officially been reported, but I think, it's a hip injury that he went off early in the Champions League game, which wasn't a great loss because he was going like a busted anyway. But could Ramsey just a different look or a different formation or do something different, knowing that our previous however many games since April away from home we hadn't won? Now, is consistently doing the same thing and expecting a different result, is that something he's got to change and shake things up a bit away from home to try and get out of this rut?
I think he's a manager who's always got really big confidence in players that have served him well before. So I don't think he's too loyal, or I don't think he's not ruthless enough. I think he genuinely thinks that he's picking the best teams to win these games. Like, there's no doubt about that. I think I was listening to another podcast earlier. They were talking about Eddie's ego. I just don't think that factors into it for him. I think he genuinely thinks the players he picks are the best for that game. But I do think he's maybe overcautious in terms of trusting players who have been so good for him for such a long period of time. And you would put Joelinton in that category. You would probably put Dan Burn in, even though the reason Dan Burn is starting games is because both of the left backs are injured or they're not fit. Like, Lewis Hall is clearly not fit to start games at the moment, because otherwise he would be. He started 25 of 27 Premier League games last season before he got injured. So this idea that Eddie is going to keep playing Burn at left back when he's got Lewis Hall fully fit and available is just complete nonsense, because that's not going to happen. Hall's going to be in when he's fit, and if he hasn't had a pre-season, and he's had 2 pretty bad injuries, so he'll be back in. And then the decision is going to be, do you play Burn or Botman at centre back?
That's really the decision.
That's the decision he's going to have to make, and that'll be instructive when that happens about what, whether he's too loyal towards certain players. But I think that Dan Burn is a good player to be loyal to. Like, we're talking a few days after he scored a ridiculous goal in a Champions League
game. One of the best headed goals you'll ever see.
He's in the England squad as a centre back, so he is a centre back. He's not a left back, but he's playing there because there's nobody else at this point in time. you can have a conversation about whether we should have maybe signed more of a backup left back that profiles similar to Lewis Hall and Tino. Maybe you can have that discussion in the summer, but there was other priorities then. So nobody wants to see Dan Burn at left back, but that's where we're at. And at home, it's been working fine. And it's not his fault, and it's not the fault. That's not the reason we lost this game. It maybe played a part in it, and he probably should have been brought up before he was. But the question was about loyalty. Yeah, the question was about loyalty towards players and changing things up. I'm surprised after Bournemouth when the changes worked, and it worked quite well, and we played 3 at the back, and we were quite defensive, but we played quite well against a good team. So I'm surprised maybe he hasn't done something more like that when we've had all of these games in such short space of time. You might have thought as well, we've got 2 weeks after this, there's the international break. Let's just put
empty the tank and
like let's put the strongest team out, empty the tank, and try and get the win. And let's not forget as well, like the 3 midfielders are, Newcastle fans saying a few weeks ago this is the best midfield in the league. So it's not like
they can't play.
Now they can't play, and like they need to be dropped and stuff. So yeah,
I did read a lot of that about being loyal and things like that. All right, so let's put our sensible managers hats on, okay, and we'll go through the starting 11 quickly from the overnight's game and the options. What could have happened? All right, so we're starting goals. Pope or Ramsdale?
Pope. But Pope's been quite good this season. He's got issues with his distribution. Everyone knows about that.
He's got issues that he doesn't grab the ball. His shot stopping is as good as anyone's. Yeah. But his punching has cost us goals. And,
it has.
And there's no sugarcoating that.
That's been a problem this season.
For this game, you're going to pick Nick Pope, aren't you?
You're going to pick Nick Pope? Yeah.
Of course you are. So, Kieran Trippier or Emil Kraft? They're your right back choices at the moment.
It's Trippier.
There you go.
Trippier, yeah.
And you can have Malik Chow, Sven Botman, or Jamal Lascelles or Fabian Schär. Would you swap Schär and Lascelles for Chow or Botman? Left back, we don't have anyone, so Dan Burn has to play. Okay, so this isn't hindsight. So Bruno and Tonali are locks. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Joel Litton's the one. So this is what I said. It was, do we try Ramsey? I know he went off injured anyway and he did play a lot of the game, but this is from the start to try and give us a different look or something like that. So it's Ramsey, Willock or Miley for Joel Litton. So that's you can argue that. I would have changed it personally, but that's just me.
And Joel scored a header as well the other day, remember? So he's probably thinking he's confident and he's fit. So
yeah. Murphy or Elanga? That's your right wing option at the moment.
Murphy's in better form, so and Elanga's obviously not doing what is required of him in training, so he's picked Murphy.
Yeah. We don't have any other fit strikers, so Big Nick, that's a non-discussion. And with Gordon going out, we probably don't really have another left winger either. So Barnes has to play. And do you know what? I think most fans would probably agree that he deserved to have a start. Gordon hasn't been great. So really, the only discussion points is Joel Litton, really. As in, let's change it up. Now, like I said, I would have changed it up because I know he scored during the week, but our away form sort of dictates that I think we need to change something because what we've been doing since April hasn't worked. Now, do you rejig a whole back? Like, I don't think Burn can play as a wing back, so you can't really bring Schär in and play like a 3-5-2 or something like that because that left side is an issue. If Hall was playing, absolutely, let's play 3-5-2 with Trippier and all his wing backs and try something different to see what it looks like. But we can't. We can't do it, and that's I think that's the frustrating thing. Reading shit like this is that we're a bit like handcuffed at the moment with what we can do and what we can't do in terms of positions and formations and players and availability and stuff like that. Now, hopefully, you said Hall comes back after the international. Well, he's going to have to play because Burn's suspended now, but that gives us a different look. I think Tino gives us a different look as well when he's when he's back fit playing. So we just and Wissa when he's fit, which reading Eddie's quotes the pre-game press conference, it sounded like to me, I interpreted that he's probably fit enough he could come on and play 15, 20 minutes, but I don't think he wants to do that. I think he wants to get him to a point where he's absolutely cherry ripe and he can throw him in from the start. That's how I interpreted that.
He's not injured anymore, is he? He's just building his fitness because
No,
he didn't have
he's
proper
building his
preseason.
fitness. Yeah.
Partly for self-inflicted reasons, but yeah, he didn't have a proper preseason. So, but I think the fullbacks has been a big problem because those two fullbacks, they're England international fullbacks, energetic. They mean that we can change the system if we want. Like we could have maybe put Trippier left wing back and Murphy right wing back if we wanted to do three at the back. But again, that's just with hindsight, really. Nobody's going to be happy looking at that lineup if that's the way you start the game. So, yeah, but this is why I think criticism of Eddie is fine. His in-game management was not good. It wasn't good last week as well. But this is why I put a lot of responsibility on the players and say, look, guys, you just have not been good enough. And that your best players haven't been good enough. You can't pass it straight. Like Eddie, they're obviously not following the plan. Like Eddie came out and said he wants his teams to attack. He always wants his teams to attack, but they're not doing it for whatever reason. And the players are not playing well, whether it's lack of confidence on the road, whether it can't be a lack of technical ability because they're good players. So it's all mess at the moment, all wrong.
Yeah, we'll touch on Dan Burn now that we've sort of been talking about him for a little bit. That was poor. It was poor in-game management. He should have come off as soon as that first penalty got overturned. He should have come off because it was clear that they probably at half time really, because they didn't really do it that much in the first half, where they seemed to sort of overload their right-hand side and leave him isolated by himself. I'd argue they got away with a penalty. I thought it should have been a penalty. There was clear contact, which stopped him. Yes, he did put a bit of mayo on it, but you can clearly see there was contact there. So for me, the first one that he got away with should have been a penalty, but that should have been the red flag to say, okay, look, let's get him off. Things aren't working here. We've got a fully capable left back who can play. Oh, he could probably play half an hour. He's probably at a point now where we can get half an hour in, but we didn't. And yeah, it was. I can't remember what minute it was, but
it was well past the 70th minute.
Yeah. It wasn't that long. Part like they still targeted him a couple other times after the penalty got overturned as well. So like I said, it wasn't hot. It was a clear tactic that they were trying to get in behind him because he was the slowest of the defenders, and it was working. And we didn't change it. Now I know I've seen arguments that maybe they kept him on because of the threat from their long throws and things like that. He's not that great in the air for a bloke his size, and we still had plenty of tall players to deal with it. Now that was a major error, in my opinion. And you could argue it cost us a game, but I think we were done anyway. The goal was coming again. It didn't matter.
I think the logic was there that you want your tall players on, and he said that Joe Linton had gone off, so I can understand it from like a purely logical, rational point of view. But for me, this is Eddie being overcautious because he's worrying too much about what Brentford are going to do, and he's not thinking enough about how we can get forward and how we can be proactive. Nobody knows how fit Lewis Hall is. He's obviously they're worried about him because he came back and then he got injured again, and he hasn't had a preseason. So no one actually knows, apart from the medical staff, what he's actually capable of playing at the moment. So that's why this whole thing about he should have started. Like, we've got people at the club now. We've got James Bunce, who had a really big impact on the injuries last season. So let's just trust that they've got the players' long-term interest in mind. They're going to try and get them fit properly before they bring them back, because the last thing we want is Lewis Hall to be playing too soon and then get injured. He needs to be brought back in at the right time. And none of us have that information about what his fitness is. So, but yes, it seems like it was a big mistake for Dan Burn to be left and it's not the first time it's happened in his Newcastle career, to be hung out to dry at left back and to be targeted. The first, you got away with the first one. The second one, we only got like one replay of it. It looked a bit weak, but you can't complain. Like it was a target. It was a good tactic by them, and then they got it. They got what they wanted. So yeah, it was a bad error from Eddie, and I think he's acknowledged he would have probably done something different. But it's all right for managers to not get everything right all the time, and this is the other thing. Like the whole narrative around this has been that if Dan Burn had been brought off, we might not have lost the game. We would. I was in the group at half time saying this is shit. We can't pass it 5 yards. Like we're going to lose this game, and we were winning at that point. I've seen this so many times before. This is like we've all seen this picture, this movie before. Like we knew what was going to happen.
We've seen it last week.
We saw it last week, so it's the fact that it's happened again is concerning. But this is pretty much like, I'm not going to say this is rock bottom because we've got a derby in 5 weeks.
Yeah, it could definitely get worse.
It could definitely get worse. But 2 points above the relegation zone. This is probably the lowest point of Eddie's reign so far, I would say. Given all of the context, like obviously when he first came in, we were losing games heavily, but he was trying to get to grips with things. But because we've got options now, and he's going to have to show his ability as a manager, and he tried to protect the players today. He said it's on me. So like for anyone thinking that Eddie doesn't know that he needs to get better, of course he does. Like he doesn't need everyone to tell him that. And I'm sure he won't be sleeping. He won't be sleeping. He'll be analysing these last two games, and he will find the answers because he always does. And I think the fullbacks in Wissa being back will be a big part of that. And we'll see what happens from there. But bad, very bad.
Yes, it is. But what's strange is that we're sixth in the Champions League table. So it if anything, it probably shows how weak the Champions League is.
How strong the Premier League is, yeah.
Yeah, with that, I think you could argue at least probably the top 10 in the Premier League would be arguably in a similar position to where we are at the moment, given the teams we've played and the quality of them. We haven't been at our best by any stretch of the imagination. Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah, we're sixth, but I think every game we've played, we've had big moments of time where we've struggled in them games, and none of them's really been a walk in the park. So yeah, it's weird how we're 2 points above relegation in the Premier League and we're sitting sixth in the Champions League table, above some really good sides.
Yeah.
So
I think the physicality of the Premier League is that's why I think teams are so much stronger. Like the Premier League is all about pace, power now, physicality, set pieces, and continental teams just can't cope with that. And I think Mourinho said as much after we beat Benfica. He's like, it's really hard for continental teams to actually cope with that. So when we're used to playing against teams like Brentford and West Ham, who are two of probably the weakest teams in the league, they can beat Champions League teams fairly easily. I think the standard of the Premier League is so. I mean, like that striker for Brentford, he was injured last season. He's a beast. He's a great player.
He's a big unit. Yeah.
He'd probably be doing quite well in the Champions League. So that's what I think that's what that is. And let's see how we get on in the away Champions League games as well before we start getting too excited. But we only really need 3 more points somewhere.
Yes. As things stand at the moment, we are above Real Madrid, we're above Liverpool, we're above Barcelona, we're above Chelsea, we're above Dortmund, Atletico Madrid as well. Leverkusen, Juventus. So we are above some pretty good teams in the Champions League at the moment, which makes absolutely no sense given our domestic form. But you take it when you can, and hopefully, I think everyone's said after every sort of bad league game, and we seem to play all right the Champions League. Hopefully, this is the sort of turning point. We've turned the corner and stuff like that, and we get to the weekend and we're shit again. So
yeah,
it is hard to keep up.
we need to improve the away league form. Like it's a big problem. It's in a way it's good that it's very clear that this is where the problem is. Like the home form is pretty good, even though we were quite lucky to beat Fulham in the end. But the Champions League form's obviously good. We're through to the quarterfinals of the cup as well. So let's enjoy the wins when we get them. And it's not complete calamity. Like we've lost 3 games out of the last 12, something like that. We've been winning all the other games apart from that. So we'll enjoy the Champions League while we're in it, because we're not going to be in it again from the league. I think
It might be next year.
I'm very confident to say now that that's just way beyond what we're capable of. We need to try and get back into Europe, whether it's through the cups or improving the form. But I think we can forget Champions League for next season. But that's why we should enjoy it when we're in it, because you spend so much energy and stress getting there, and then when you're there, you can't enjoy it because you're not very good in the league.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try my
Makes
very
real
best
sense.
try my very best to enjoy the Champions League, and it's good that we've got some games that we can actually win in that. We're not going to win the Champions League, but we'll have a I think we'll have a good run, and I think things will improve in time. It just doesn't. It feels bad at the moment after these last 2 games.
Yeah, it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But last thing, mate, before we wrap up, last week as well was the news that Peter Silverstone's taking up a position with Juventus. He's currently on gardening leave, so I'm not sure how long that will be before he takes up that role. For me, it came as a bit of a surprise, but after reading it, like on the surface, when you see COO or you see CEO, Chief Commercial Officer, puts his resignation in, alarm bells sort of start straight away. And then once some of the reports come out, it sounded like this was on the cards, more like it wasn't really a shock, probably internally as much as it was externally as well. And it sounds like Dave Hopkinson, the new CEO, has sort of undertaken a 100-day review of the club to try and, get a bit of a feel for where things are at and what he needs to do, I guess, as CEO to continue to take the club forward. Now, whether Pete thought he was going to be a sitting duck in this and things like that. Now, he could argue that, he's increased sponsorship by 130%, and he brought in the Adidas deal and some really good commercial deals with Red Bull and Guinness and that exclusive stuff with JD Sports and all that sort of stuff. But it feels like there's still a lot of untapped resources there, especially when it comes. Well, I know the training kit, the training ground sponsor is probably not the mega dollars that some people think it is, but it's dollars or pounds nonetheless. It's something that, after over 3 years, probably should have had something in place now with it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what do you think about Pete?
It's hard to say, really, like without knowing what goes on behind the scenes. Like I know that he's been a favorite of people who've said that he's done nothing, but he obviously very clearly has. But
Yeah,
maybe it's just that Hopkinson wants to bring his own people in. Maybe there has been an underperformance. We're never going to know that, like you said, this idea that we can get a training kit sponsor and then go and buy, I don't know, Mbappe or something, which some fans seem to think that'll bring the money in for that. That's just pie in the sky, really. So, but there's been this idea that he's been waiting until we can get better value by being a regular Champions League team. I don't know, but the commercial revenue has absolutely skyrocketed, and maybe that was in spite of him instead of because of him. But I'd like to give him some credit. The fact he's been in the position for about 2 or 3 years, and he's been responsible for the commercial income, and the commercial income has, improved exponentially. So off the pitch, the club has been trying to keep pace with on the pitch, and that's been where some of the challenges have been with the executive appointments and some of the friction that's been going on there. So hopefully this is just another step of things getting a bit sorted with the Hopkinson and Ross Wilson, and then hopefully we've got the next chief financial officer, whatever he's going to be, in commercial officer for the foreseeable future, and it's just more pieces of the puzzle coming together for the club. And we all love talking about men in suits, don't we? Instead of men running around in football shirts on the pitch.
Yeah, unless you're Chancellor Mbemba, who rocked up in that tuxedo.
Or Florian Thauvin, yeah.
Thauvin did as well. Yeah, their first game, and I'll never forget that because they said they didn't have a suit, so they've gone and brought a nice three-piece dinner suit with a bow tie walking into a game was mind-boggling. But do you think that part of this was maybe for Hopkinson to bring his own person in? I know from his sort of background, he probably leaned into that more than what Darren Eales did in terms of what his previous staff, and he was really heavily involved in the commercial side of things as well. So do you think part of that might be bringing in someone who he, I guess, has worked with and maybe trusts a lot more to help propel the club forward because they've got a good working relationship already?
Yeah, or unless maybe he thinks that he'll do some of these things, because like you said, his background is in the commercial side of things. He worked for Madison Square Garden, and I think it was the NHL team in Toronto as well. So maybe he wants to take do some of this stuff a bit more hands on, maybe because that's his skill set. Although he's obviously got plenty of other things to be doing as well. So yeah, time will tell, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's good that the club now seems to have a kind of stability in terms of a new chief executive, a new director of football. It's got a manager who is, as much as some people might like to think, he's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So you get that stability of the leadership team, and everything else will follow. So there's other people. There's the guy who was involved with the stadium. I can't remember. They've all got titles like chief operating officer or something like that. So there's other people in the background doing things, and the club. Let's just never forget, 4 years ago, this club was complete shell. Lee Charnley was doing everything by himself.
Every job that we've just mentioned.
Every job we've just mentioned. And he was getting paid relative peanuts for it as well.
Yeah.
So
you would have had the longest email tag in history after he'd sent an email with all these jobs underneath it.
So it was always going to take time. And I think with the way that Saudi operates, things can take a bit longer because they delegate, and hopefully they've got people in place now they're happy to delegate to. And we can start worrying about what's going on the pitch and trust that off the pitch operation is progressing as it should be.
All right, mate. Before we wrap this up, we have been pretty somber and negative and things like that for good reason as well. But let's leave on a positive, mate. Give us something positive that's happening that, you know, whether you can get excited about or something like that. Let's leave this on a good note.
Well, Dan Burns scored a curling header into the top corner in a Champions League game, which was, I don't know if any club has ever been relegated at the same time as scoring the best header and the best penalty in history, but that seems to be the way that we're going for it this season.
Yeah.
We're odds on. But yeah, like that was just like, I know we haven't talked about it since, but I've got that saved on my phone along with Voltemada's penalty. But there's good stuff going on, like among this, football, like you got to take the rough with the smooth, I think. And it makes that we had a lot of years of rough, and then we've had pretty much 4 years of smooth. So we won a cup this year still. So my cup's still full. Yeah, my cup's still full from that. So I think it'll make it better. Adversity. You go through adversity and you come out the other side. I'm still positive about where we're at, and I think once we get a couple of players back, we'll be in a decent position. And I think like I am reconciled with the fact that we're not going to be getting in the Champions League this season, and that's okay. I think it's in a way that to have that expectation gone this early in the season, I think that's all right as long as we get some kind of European football. I think that would be the target from now, and you can adjust your expectations. So I'm still feeling pretty positive, even though there's obviously problems for us to look at. And it's not a transfer window because, that was pretty horrible. So we've come through that as well. Yep. And we've just got a few months till the next one. Woohoo!
Yes. Awesome. Well, my positive thing is I'm going to Sam Fender on Friday. So he's playing in Melbourne.
Wednesday.
Yes. So between now and the next game, that's my positive thing to leave, that I have got Sam Fender to look forward to in 4 more sleeps. We both went to Oasis in Melbourne, not the weekend just gone, but the weekend before that. You went on the Saturday night, I
Friday,
think.
yeah.
Oh, Friday night. I went on the Tuesday night. It was the same show, so probably not like we missed out on things, but that was really cool too. So yeah, apart from the shit show that seems to be going on the pitch at the moment, there's plenty to look forward to off it.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of black and white at all of the Sam Fender gigs, and yeah, that's going to be. He's playing in River Stage in Brisbane, which is the best. It's like an open air music venue.
So
as long as
he's
don't
playing
get hail, as long as don't get hailstorm, we'll be all good.
Yeah, so he's playing at City Mine Music Bowl here in Melbourne, which is also an open air amphitheatre. So the stage is kind of at the bottom of a hill. It's I've seen I've seen Arctic Monkeys there, Blink-182. Who else? I can't remember. I've seen a couple other bands there too. A really, really good venue. So I remember last time we played in like a car park, right near the water and stuff like that. But it was literally just Newcastle shirts everywhere, and I was absolutely frothing. So I can't wait to put my hardest decision is what one to wear. That's what I'm really sort of juggling at the moment, which one to wear. I wore my NTL Shearer one, think sort of Champions League fine horde home shirt that time. Not sure whether I'll go. I'm not sure if I go the Viduka one here in the background or the old brown ale one with the Adidas kind of written word there. So yeah, plenty of decisions to make, but yeah, 4 days to make them. But keen as cannot wait. So
special.
That's me. All right, mate. Well, we'll wrap this bad boy up now. Thank you, everyone. If you've got through this far, thanks for sticking by us. It was a rough ride, a bit like our away form at the moment. It's been a rough to watch, but or listen to. But thanks for sticking by us. I'm sure we'll be back. Hopefully next week we might do a bit of a take stock pod over the weekend while there's nothing on. I might just jump on and do a full Sam Fender gig review if no one else wants to do something. But anyway, mate, thanks very much for joining us, and yeah, we'll catch you all next time.
Cheers. See ya.